Section 6 of Anthropology. This is a LibriVox recording by Vivian Weaver. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Anthropology, Book 1 by Immanuel Kant. Translated by Adolf Ernst Kroger. Section 10. The preceding section, which treats of a seeming faculty to do what no man can do, leads us to an exposition of the conceptions of what is easy and what is difficult to do. Easiness, promptitudo, to do something, must not be mistaken for readiness, habitus. The former signifies a certain degree of the human faculty, I can if I will, and designates subjective possibility. The latter signifies the subjective practical necessity, i.e., a habit of doing, and hence a certain degree of the will which is attained by a repeated exercise of that facility. I will because duty commands it. Hence virtue cannot be explained as a readiness of performing free, just acts, for in that case it would be more mechanism of the application of force, but virtue is the moral strength to do our duty, which can never become a habit, but must always proceed new and originally from our mode of thinking. The easy is opposed to the difficult, but often also to the irksome. A person finds a thing easy when he sees within him a great superfluity of the faculty and power which is necessary to accomplish a certain act. What is easier than the formalities of visits, congratulations, condolences, etc.? But again, what is more difficult for a busy man? They are friendly vexations of which everybody desires heartily to get rid, though he hesitates to offend against usage. What vexations, for instance, do we not meet in the external observances that are counted as belonging to religion, though they really pertain only to the forms of the Church, and in regard to which the merit of piety is adjudged to consist in the fact that those observances are of no use at all, and in the mere submission of the faithful to allow themselves to be patiently hoodwinked by ceremonies, such as penances and flagellations, the more the better. Whilst, nevertheless, these slavish observances, though mechanically easy, since they do not require the sacrifice of any vicious inclinations, must be morally very oppressive and burdensome to rational men. When the great moral teacher of men said, "Therefore my commands are not difficult," etc., he did not intend to say that it requires only a slight exertion to fulfill them, for as commands which require a pure heart, they are really, of all commandments, the most difficult to observe, but he meant that for a rational man they were, after all, infinitely easier of observance than the commands of a busy do-nothingness. Gradus anhelar, multa agendo, nihil agere, such as the Jews had brought into practice. For to a man of reason, that which is mechanically easy seems excessively burdensome, when he sees that the labor wasted upon it brings, after all, no results. To make something easy which of itself is difficult constitutes a merit. To represent it as being easy when we ourselves cannot do it is deception. To do that which is easy to do is without merit. Methods and machines and the distribution of labor amongst many workmen, factory labor, make many things easy, which it might be difficult to do without other tools. To point out difficulties before assigning a piece of work to the learner, as for instance in metaphysical investigations, may certainly deter many, but still it is better than to conceal them. The man who considers everything he undertakes to be easy is light-minded. He who finds everything he undertakes to come easy to him is clever, and he whose actions always betray care and pain is unhandy. Social conversation is a mere play wherein everything must be and appear easy. This is the reason why the ceremonial or stiff elements of social gatherings, as for instance the solemn leave-taking after a festival, have been abandoned as antiquated. The moods of men in undertaking a business is different according to the differences of their temperaments. Some begin with difficulties and anxieties. These are of melancholic disposition. Others who have a sanguine temperament Think first of all of their hopes and the supposed easiness of the execution of their projects. But what shall we say of the boast of some men? A boast which has not its origin in mere temperament. Man can do whatever he wills to do. This boast is nothing more than a high-sounding tautology. For whatever man wills to do upon the command of his moral reason, it is his duty to do, and hence he also can do it, since reason will never exact the impossible. Some years ago, however, we had some coxcombs who also boasted this power in a physical sense, and thus announced themselves as world reformers. Their race, however, has now expired. To become accustomed to anything, consuetudo, makes it easy in the end to bear evils, since feelings of the same kind detract attention from the senses by their long duration without change, so that we are finally barely conscious of them, a state of things which is falsely honored in the name of a virtue, namely patience. But this becoming accustomed to things also renders the consciousness and the remembrance of received benefits difficult, and this leads generally to ingratitude, a real vice. Habit, assuetudo, on the other hand, is a physical inner compulsory impulse to continue in the way we have been following. On that very account it deprives good actions of their moral worth, since it checks the freedom of our disposition and leads to thoughtless repetitious of the same act, monotony, whereby it becomes ridiculous. Habitual phrases, merely to conceal emptiness of thought, always keep the hearer in anxiety that he will have to hear again the same worn-out saying, and make of the orator a mere speaking machine. The cause of the disgust which the habits of others excite in us is to be found in this, that the animal shows itself too prominently in the man who acts instinctively as habit prompts him, just like any other non-human creature, and who thus runs the risk of being placed in the same class with cattle. Nevertheless, there are certain habits which may be assumed properly and to which we may give our assent, namely, when nature refuses its assistance to our free will. Thus, for instance, we may habituate ourselves in age to the time of our eating and drinking, and to the quantity and quality thereof, or to our time and length of sleeping, thereby making the habit gradually mechanical, but as a rule every bit as objectionable. End of section 10.